It sits up on the wall, but it's connected pretty well with pretty strong hooks or, pretty strong nails and stuff like that. So you don't look familiar. You must be new to the order. Everybody? Aye, that I am. Would your hospitality to a newcomer extend to a sample of your brew? It might, if your miserly abbot bothered paying to pay his bill. What's more, he never sends back the cask. So I'm of no temper to be generous.
Completely understood.
Go ask him for free ale.
I think we already looked at.
It's the bucket that the soul. Yeah, and I think you clicked on it actually. Yeah. Right. C batteries don't show up much anymore. Everything is AA, AAA, or 9-volt. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally, maybe it's just like certain types of devices, especially more from our youth. You just see a lot more of. I'm thinking more like a boom box where you have to put in the C or D batteries. Yeah. I want to see those for maybe D. I still have my Sony boom box. I want to say about 1997. I still have it around because it has a dual cassette player on it. So if I have any cassettes I want to play or something, that's the way I can still play them.
It's very old. Very old.
So it's still that. I mean, we still have a VCR/DVD player.
We do.
Because there were a couple of movies. One movie we have on VHS is called High Strung. I don't think it ever made it to DVD or streaming. I've seen somebody do like a bad reproduction on YouTube. But it's probably one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. It's called High Strung.
It never got put
It had
DVD.
the on the front of the box, it shows Jim Carrey because he does have a small role in it. And I think this was a little before he did Ace Ventura and got real big. But I'm trying to think of the name of the guy who plays the main character, Thane Furrows. He does more directing, who is the main character. But that movie, High Strung, it's essentially a guy kind of sits in his apartment and complains about everything and anything for about 90 minutes. And there's a loose plot to it to string it all together, but it's just great little bits. I mean, you could almost just kind of jump anywhere in the movie and catch some little thing of whatever he's complaining about, and it's just classic little bits to joke about. But that movie just never made it to DVD that I ever know of.
Yeah, it was Steve Odenkirk is the one who played in the High Strung, and yeah, it is definitely not on DVD. It is only on VHS. I used to always get stereo systems with dual cassette decks. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, for things like that, it was...
I'll wake you up if you were sleeping.
Yeah. Definitely it was nice to have things like that, especially if you were... especially during an era where, your cassettes, they were inexpensive, and I had my Walkman-ish type tape player, and so I'd often take my CDs, or if it was something off the radio, record something onto it and listen that way. That was probably when I was in high school or something, before I had a portable CD player, and even portable CD players were of variable quality. Did they have skip protection because you're trying to walk around with them, and that thing's going around, and so if you're moving too much, it would skip really bad. Which didn't have that problem with Walkmans nearly as much. Now, of course, then there's iPods, and now you can just listen to things on your phone.
There's gonna be a time when somebody's gonna be like, Walkman, what the heck was that? I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna check on Alex and Ollie.
Oh yeah, Alex was whining before anyway, but of course, brother. Yeah, the boombox I still have. I think it can sort of still play CDs, but it kind of skips. Fortunately, most of the time, we do even still have, I think, another little CD player / radio. But most of the time, if I do have a CD, it goes into my car, where I can play it that way, or I will rip it to my computer or something like that. And I still like having physical CDs for like some of my favorite bands and stuff like that, especially if it's something I'd like to listen to in my car. I have a 6 CD changer in my car, which is just awesome. I love having that. So it's just, pop in 6 CDs into it and I can just cycle between those. No radio or, no ads. It's all great music. I love it. So same, big physical media person. Yeah. Of course, like a lot of the boxes back there, a lot of those are older, but even things like newer games, like I'm looking at the Switch games we have, and a nice little collection. I mean, granted, I think there's some of them that you pop them in and then they have to download a bunch of stuff. And you kind of wonder, like, okay, what happens sometime in the future? You try to play a game and it's trying to contact the server and say, oh no, you need to go download more stuff. You might still be a little screwed, unfortunately, which is sad. I definitely know there are things that we've seen even with like certain online stores, like with the Wii U, when Nintendo was shutting that one down for, I think it was that and for the DS or 3DS or something. And when they were starting to do that, we went and purchased as many things as we could for the Wii U. The Wii U itself, we did not have a ton of games, but we definitely did buy a lot of stuff through like the virtual console and things like that. So
Alex is in for a little bit. He probably won't be happy for too long.
Yeah, the door is locked. Is this pretty? See a laundry room within. Oh, see the refectory and the abbot within the far end of the room. See nothing of interest.
What's worrisome?
Oh, being able to, just a second. Monks don't lead such a hard life with quarters like these, but they've nothing I want. Talking about online digital stores and things like that, talking about just liking to have physical media of things, but it's talking about the, number of physical Switch games we have, but the concern about, what if the online stores go down sometime in the future and you try to pop in one of these games and, often they want to say, oh, we want to go download stuff. What happens then if, then it's like, oh, nope, you can't even play this, even though you have the physical cartridge, but it might
that is worrisome.
Maybe it's not the entire game because there are some games like that, like LA Noire was I think it was like over 32 gigs or something like that. Or, however large it was a good sized game. So you had to get, the SD card put into your Switch so you could play that game.
Right.
I'm glad that the Switch does have that option that you can pop in, I think you can maybe get up to even like 2 terabytes or something. So that's a wonderful thing to be able to have. So at least Nintendo is smart enough to be able to cover one of the weaknesses of the Switch, that the base amount of storage on the original one, I think was just 32 gigs.
Oh yeah.
And I think the OLED was maybe 64. So they bumped it up, but it was just not a generous amount. Kind of goes from the Apple way of trying to chintz out and be cheap about things. It is a not as expensive system. It'll be kind of interesting to see what happens with the next successor. Yeah, the Switch 2, Switch Pro, Switch
whatever
Next.
they decide to call it.
There have been some rumors that you'll be able to play all of your Switch games on whatever it comes next, which I think would make sense. I'm just hoping whatever they do, it's maybe it'll just be kind of a step up from the Switch, going from like say a PS4 to a PS5 or something, and still be able to be backwards compatible. I just hope it doesn't suffer the fate of what happened when they went from the Wii to the Wii U, because the Wii was very successful. I think it sold over like 100 million units, and then you had the Wii U, which was, I think, one of their worst selling consoles they've ever had.
Yeah.
The Virtual Boy was probably worse, but the Wii U, I think last I saw was like maybe 13 million or something. I mean, in comparison to what some of their others have sold, very, very, very minimal.
So you have a purpose for being over here?
Just looking around.
Messnet said he added more memory to my Switch. As soon as you said worst selling console of all times, I thought of the Virtual Boy.
I wouldn't mind one of those. We actually do have a this little I don't even know where it is.
We got an emulated Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, we have a little, kind of like a retro game station thing, and it did have the Virtual Boy games on it too, and you can sort of play them. I think it depends on which game. So it's kind of cool to be able to have that option. Like when I watched the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he goes over some of those games, and some of them actually looked. Some of the Virtual Boy games actually look kind of cool, but and the Cell Monk is counting the number of angels dancing upon the head of a pin. Yeah, I remember trying a Virtual Boy one time at a Sears. Can't say I was impressed. Yeah, Sears when they had stuff like that. So, yeah, I remember I bought the game Solar Striker there for like $20 for Christmas for my brother. I think I have that too.
Solar Striker?
Oh, there it is. It's a space shoot 'em up type game. It was good. And we were I think I probably bought that. I think we were down in Peoria or something like that. So I'm thinking I bought that about 5 years ago or something like that. And so that was kind of fun to try to do that. But anyway, yeah, you were talking about Sears and what they used to sell. I remember they used to sell computers, and I remember seeing a demo of Please Quest 3 on it, and definitely it was cool to see what the graphics of that game looked like versus the family Tandy computer, which was a little limited, even though it was just a couple of years out of date. That was definitely during the early days of home computers, where you probably could get about 3 good years out of a computer before it was outdated. Fortunately now with computers, I would say, and even cell phones to a certain degree, I think are matured enough that you could probably get a good about 5 to 7 years out of a computer,
right?
Before it starts getting, if anything, it's just the software isn't being written for the older hardware. If your hardware can't run the latest operating system or something, that's what's going to probably start limiting you. And especially with like internet, if certain things aren't being updated, if your browser can't run the latest. So
yeah.
Larry, Patty, what are you doing here? No, this isn't the Nottingham Swinging Singles Health Spa.
Larry, Larry and Patty.
Yes.
What?
That's awesome. What? I think there's like a randomness that you might even see, or I'm going to check over here too, but there might be a certain randomness where you see some other monks in brotherly law or something. This barren and blood-spattered room has been set aside for the unpleasant practice of self-flagellation.
Oh, yeah.
You are a very, very bad, naughty monk.
I think I've been doing a computer update every 8 years or so, and I use consoles for the bulk of my gaming.
Yeah. I mean, I still have a lot of older computers, and sometimes it's fun to kind of just go back and play some of the older ones. I have a iMac from 2015. I actually was making good use of that one over the past month. I've been playing Quest for Glory 2, the VGA version. And I mean, I think a lot of that was it's a nice big screen, and I have this some nice speakers connected up to it as well. So that was fun to be able to play that way. Oh, yeah, the other reason why I play that with that fan remake is when you fight in the battles, you need to use the num keypad, and so my other keyboards, like whether on my laptop or I have a mini keyboard, they don't have a numpad. So that was another reason I used that iMac instead. Oh, pardon me, brothers. I didn't mean to interrupt such a tender scene of brotherly love.
Haha.
Exit is blocked. Okay.
I'm wondering if there's a reason. If you don't do something dumb like lose your... Do you need a new robe?
We need 3 robes. We have 3 brothers we're going to go save.
3 brothers that we're going to rescue.
Because they're mostly dry. Nothing worse than carrying around wet wool. You would hate that. You wouldn't survive.
Mm-mm.
Oh, man. I remember when I was in Boy Scouts, and I had, we go like hiking or camping in the winter, and it's very snowy, and I had wool socks, which were generally, wool is generally advised, but I think those socks were just like too small or something. They were so difficult to put on.
Wool?
They did not stretch at all. Oof.
So when you're in the military, that's what they give you is wool socks. Big, green, ugly wool socks.
Army green.
And brown.
Yeah. I was reading like some discussions on the internet. I think it was like, somebody kind of looking at like, my life sucks. I'm living with my mom. She's a basket case. How do I get out of here? I want to join the military, and kind of getting, a lot of advice from other people, and it was kind of interesting. And generally, a lot of people were kind of saying, here's the, I think a lot of people said, look at either the Coast Guard or the Air Force. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people were kind of, and sometimes the Navy.
But you got to have some brains.
Yeah. I mean,
I think, be dumb and go those places.
Yeah, I think some were saying, with some of them, it was certain type of people versus, pretty much no one was saying the Marines unless you really want to be a Marine. And I've known a couple of Marines, and yeah, it was, you don't go there.
They're very smart men, but
yeah, that's some of the stories I've heard from people that were Marines, like, dang, man, nope.
Yeah. But that'll get you out of your mom's basement.
Yeah.
If you can stand.
Yeah, they'll yeah, there's some people I feel that could either be the best thing for you, or that would just destroy you.
Like our youngest son, we just could never picture. It might have been the better thing for him, but we could just never picture him doing it.
Very much a person that liked to go, march to the beat of his own drum, and definitely had. Definitely has. Yeah, like, I'm not gonna do somebody else's, and so that's why I'm thinking like the military would not work for him. Either that or tear him down and build him back up. So it's depends on which approach. But
again, military is good when you have no place to go. You have no place to go, no future. You want to do something for your life. Taught me some of the strongest lessons in life I would ever learn.
I think there's a lot of it. People who have been in the military, that it definitely creates kind of a brotherhood or a sisterhood amongst the people that have been there. So.
It's definitely not great if you are heavy, or if you are really weak, heavy. Those kind of people don't ever need to join the military, because those with no thick skin, because They don't have any problem telling you how it's going to be. I remember drill sergeant. We walked. You know, it was first few days of basic, and they basically said, "Mama's not here anymore. I'm not holding your hand." You know, there were feminine issues, and the drill sergeant, female drill sergeant, said, "I don't want to hear you talking about it with anyone."
Yeah, sort of thing. Have you ever thought your job sucked?
Yeah, when you want to think, okay, when you want to think your job sucks, go and do the first few weeks of basic training, because that'll shake and wake you up if nothing else. Yeah. She was like, "I don't want to hear you whining to the drill sergeants, using that as, using that as an excuse, as a no-no." I mean, it was a whole, basically, you're a soldier now, and you better either get with the program or get out. And so a lot of people were kicked out.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I can't remember what the movie was, but there was like this kid that really wanted to be in the military, but he was kind of heavy, and he couldn't run fast enough or something.
That Full
like
Metal
that.
Jacket?
No, I think it was something newer. But the kid couldn't run them fast enough, and then
Out of here.
Okay. No, I think it was something a little newer. And there's like one guy, he had to bulk up, and then the other guy who was too heavy needed to slim down and couldn't run fast enough, and so he had a lot of heart, but he couldn't run fast enough, and so he did not pass, and he ended up, and tried to jump out a window from it or whatever. But I remember also, like, I think it was about a year or two after I graduated from high school. There was some guy, he was kind of like a friend of a friend type thing. Mm-hmm. And I think he mentioned he did try to go into the military, but didn't cut it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they'll weed you out and they'll kick you out, and you either get with the program, you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you shine your boots and.
Yeah. Or, I hate it enough getting up at 6 something in the morning right now, and especially right now it's dark.
And sometimes you just went to bed at midnight.
Yeah.
I mean
imagine 4 in the morning. And I actually saw
living on 4 hours of sleep.
Person I worked with, I think he's in Iceland, and he showed a picture of sun coming up at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Well, the other ironicness is they shut the lights out at like 9 o'clock something. So you sit there for those 3 hours. People would do things like buff floors and stuff like that. And you would, fold your clothes, and they had to be a certain dimension and hanging a certain way, and the buttons had to be faced a certain way, and the bed had to be made a certain way, and your laundry basket had to be tied a certain special way on each of the beds, and had to be absolutely uniform. Man, I could tell horror stories about the military, but most people don't come in with those kind of ethics. So that is why they build you up break you down, and then try to rebuild you. I remember,
it's almost a little like 1984.
I remember a scenario. It was after lights were out, and the girls were all fooling around up on our floor. I think I was in the hallway, because you use that time to you didn't take a shower in the dark if the lights went out. You were in the dark, right? Oh, hi, Mark Cade. Wow, thank you so much for the crazy amount of bits. Okay, so let me continue the story.
She's not much of a
so the senior drill sergeant was charge of quarters, and charge of quarters meant that he. 2, thank you, Chad,
3,
for being.
4,
please stop.
5, 6.
So the senior drill sergeant was charge of quarters that night, I mean, the girls wouldn't settle down. We had been warned, the women, we had been warned to settle down or we were going to pay the penalty. And they wouldn't. They were just hollering and screaming and running around the floors and stuff. And so the next thing you know, the senior drill sergeant said, the platoon we were in, front leaning rest position, move. And that all of a sudden, in unison, you heard girls everywhere fall to the ground into the position, the push-up position. And we ended up doing about 50 push-ups that night because and that is the last time those girls, and myself included, ever were fooling around on the floor. That is the kind of conditioning I'm talking about. Because you can't imagine kids at school doing something like that. You know, you can't imagine too many organizations where you would get such a instant response. And believe me, over the intercom, he wasn't even in the floor. Over the intercom, he was doing those 1, 2, over, and it was crazy. So it just totally, it builds you up. It breaks you completely down, and then it builds you back up. And for people who are small, you become heavy. And for people who are heavy, you get smaller. That's because we can't throw kids in the brig when they refuse to. And they don't really throw you in the brig there either. What they do is they put you on extra kitchen police or, something like going around picking up cigarette butts out in the general's house parking lot or whatever they wanted to do. A parade area, cleaning up. They call it police call. Or, and so you would go around picking up stuff all over the posts and stuff like that. But Kate, thank you so much for the biddies. I was just sharing a little. I don't talk too much about those times. I literally have put my blinders on to them because they were just so awful. I did make it through basic training. I did make it through my training. But as soon as I was married, as soon as I was married and pregnant, I got out. I knew I couldn't handle continuing to do the what the military asks of me, like physically training wise and stuff like that. I just knew I wasn't going to be one of those pregnant women that would be that way. And so I got out, but the lessons I learned have carried me through life, that when things can get bad, things can get that much worse. Your first time in band camp? No, my first time in the military. That was not band camp. That was basic training, and it was bad. Actually, wasn't too. I actually learned to shoot. I learned how to exercise. I learned about sisterhood and things like that, but lots of other garbage stuff that I've never used before, including how to read a terrain map and stuff, and compasses.
Useful for if you're in the field, I guess. But
yeah.
You're talking about something like this is how you do things and doing things right. And I remember seeing on one of these shows, like talk show things like Donahue or Jerry Springer or whatever, one of those types of things. And it was something like the stepfather was a military guy, and there were 2 teenagers, and you can kind of see how the stepfather wants things done the right way, and he would do things that you've probably seen, like if they hadn't done something right or whatever, he'd take maybe their laundry, dump it on the ground, have them clean it up, and you can imagine how the teenagers would be probably pretty pissed about that.
Yeah, so that's why I think that definitely Doom would have not done well in the military, because he didn't have the patience to do it that way, to, like I said, I'm not kidding when I say that the clothes had to be hung a certain, and spaces between them, with your finger, and that they needed to be able to bounce a quarter off your bunk, and you had, you know, wool blanket. This is where I learned to hate wool so much, was definitely my time in the military, because everything itched, from the BDUs to the socks, everything stinking itched.
Yeah. Then she hates, like, I have this blanket that I still have, and she just hates it and thinks it's wool. I don't think it's wool, but she loathes the thing and would try to hide it and stuff. It's really immature.
It is immature. It's me taking myself back, you know. But for when I got out for that first 6 months, I had dreams that were going to recall me. You know, there was just that kind of, you know, there's just things you learn that, you know, kind of carry you through life in that regards. But that some fathers especially take it way too far. And you cannot raise your kids to do it that way. That's, you know, it takes away your kids' individuality.
Yeah, and there's, of course, that balance of trying to raise your kids, and each one's going to be different, have their own personality. Oh yeah, I forgot to take Mr. Loudmouth outside again. And, you know, trying to raise kids, and where's the balance of things, of letting them start to grow versus trying to guide them. How much are they going to listen and follow? Well,
okay.
Hey, Mr. Hot Stuff.
He's definitely not happy. Such a little shit. Anyway, thank you once again, Mike, and no brigging for any kid. They refuse to, but there is a little bit of discipline. I think you see, like, when you're private prep school or something like that, or a military school for kids, that you will see that kind of discipline come through, that kind of structure.
Yeah, and there was Dead Poets Society. I think that was something a little like it was like a preparatory school. And I remember at the beginning they talk about, like, 90% of our students end up going on to Ivy League schools or something like that.
Right.
It was something along those lines. And you see that, I mean, it was definitely a very challenging school type thing. So,
well, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get little Mr. Loudmouth out.
Could be of service to you, Your Grace.
Oh,
all right, that you can, brother. This bloody puzzle box is driving me mad, and I'm down to my last mug of ale. Trot over to the pub and get me some more of this potent brew. Forgive my ignorance, but why don't you simply break open the box? Because it's too well made, that's why. Besides, it's supposed to contain a magic ring, a perfect ruby set in flames made of gold, and I'll not take any chance on damaging it. Not that it's any of your business. Be on your way. Shall I take the empty cask with me, Your Grace? Why, who cares? For what that innkeeper charges me, he can afford to lose a few casks. But make sure to bring back his best ale, none of that poisonous, scrumpy cider stuff. Pardon me, but how shall I pay for it? I notice you have your purse. Enough addle-pated questions. He'll bill me as he always does. Now be off with you. Good to see you, Mike and Medicine Hat. Winkers, we always see you. Okay, now we're going to go get some more ale for the abbot. This cask has carried many mugs of ale. Well, fortunately, we got past a game of Nine Men's Morris. I have not played this game probably since the 90s, as I mentioned last stream, because I played this game in the later 90s, and then I took an AI course, and I mentioned this game. Here's a little board, and I mentioned this game to my instructor. You know, he enjoyed games, especially when you're talking about AI, and you know, definitely a big part of was game strategies, and was, you know, definitely a big part was game strategies. And I mentioned this, and then he made that as an assignment for the next year, because I think I played. Oh man, I'm trying to think what it was. Was it Reverse Eye or something like that? It was like one of these, try to get like um, oh man, I'm Gomoku or something like that. It was similar to like kind of like sort of like a Connect 4, except it was like trying to do like a Connect 5 or something instead. Blanking the name of that game. I think there was a couple different variants of it. And actually, when I first started at university, my first one of the earliest assignments we had was learning Mancala, which in Quest for Glory 2 they have, or Quest for Glory 3 they have a variant of that game called Awari. So it was very similar, and so that was kind of neat. Unfortunately, I had not played Quest for Glory 3 yet by the time I learned about that. So that would have been kind of cool if I had already played Quest for Glory 3. And it's like, oh, I know this. Unfortunately, the computers I had from about 1990 through late 96, couldn't play any modern computer games. So we had our Tandy 1000. And so pretty much we're stuck at about games that ended at about 1990, especially started seeing that big shift. King's Quest V is definitely heralded that suddenly now you need to use a mouse and you have VGA graphics and a sound card. And so there was definitely that very big jump real quickly. And as I mentioned earlier in the stream, home computers at that time were good for maybe about 3 years before they were outdated and you needed to go find something else.
All right. Let's do this.
Okay. The Abbott wanted some more ale. I'm busy. Just it won't know the difference. I believe this empty cask belongs to you. Well, well, much appreciated, brother. You're the only monk who's bothered to do me this service. Here's a new cask. Did the Abbot send payment? Nay, he... Never mind, you were kind enough to bring this cask, but remind him that the bill is overdue. I shall gladly. If you're in a hurry to get back, signal me from the cellar door and I'll let you in so you can go the short way. What sort of signal? Like you're trying to open it. That'll be enough.
Do you know what he's talking about?
Oh, you try to go open and he'll let you through. Has carried many.
Oh, so is there a secret tunnel that way?
Yeah, he'll show us the short way to get. Since you brought me the cask, I'll let you back the short way. But tell the Abbot it's the last time if he doesn't pay up on his bill.